apes are in, baby. Just like we had the Monkey Man, we had the Godzilla Kong movie, and just apes are just destroying at the box office. And
nor bend for your king. Never.
hello, Drive-By Movies here, and you're watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is James.
My name is Blaise.
And today, Blaise and I took a trip to a kingdom of the planet of the apes.
Together, you will die. No, together, strong.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is the latest iteration in the Planet of the Apes franchise. It tells the story of many years after the reign of Caesar, a young ape goes on a journey that will lead him to question everything he's been taught about the past and make choices that will define a future for apes and humans alike. So this is Wes Ball's latest film. I haven't watched any of his previous films. This is my, the first thing I've seen of him, and I was heavily impressed. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I think it really captured that adventure movie kind of vibe, and that's something I feel like has been lacking. I recently watched The Mummy. It was the 20th anniversary. It was 20th, 25th. It was
actually. Yeah,
it was an anniversary to remember. I absolutely loved watching that film in theaters. It makes me want to rewatch like all the Indiana Jones movies, but specifically in theaters because those things probably hit heavy. But yeah, this film felt like it captured some of that magic, just that enjoyment and wonderment and adventure that you can see in other films in the adventure genre, like Lord of the Rings or something like that. But yeah, I heavily enjoyed this movie. It felt like it kind of treaded some similar ground that the previous trilogy did, but I think that there's going to be more to explore in the iterations to come.
Yeah, and it still feels very fresh because I just got to say, take notes, Terminator franchise, this is how you do it. Just like touch unused ground, something that's not going to tarnish any of the other previous movies. And this one just absolutely doesn't. This is a movie that I had no idea existed until the teaser popped out. That's very rare for me, that a movie, just a huge blockbuster movie, just gets made without me ever hearing about it, like with the announcement from Deadline or Variety or what have you, or any casting decisions. I was just pleasantly surprised that this movie came out. And, I am very surprised by how good this movie was. Like you said, we don't get, like, even though the previous movies I'd still consider like more adventure-y, they're very dark. But this one feels like a throwback to just like the movies that you were saying. And just sometimes all you need to see is just horse chases and stuff. It doesn't have to be crazy gunfights. And while I enjoyed watching Koba handle 2 guns and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, this movie just keeps it overall pretty simple. It's not heavy on the action by any means. It's just a fun movie, and like apes are in, baby. Just like we had the Monkey Man, we had the Godzilla Kong movie, and just apes are just destroying at the box office. And you and I both hate franchises overall in general. We never really look forward to the summer blockbuster movies, but just here I am 3 years, or like eagerly awaiting 3 years from now to see what's going to happen next with this series, just because we actually had some great characters. I really enjoyed Noah as a character, getting to know what his lifestyle is in this new society of apes, because Caesar isn't really all that well known, and the people that do know about him kind of are false prophets. It has a fun take on religion, and then there's people who actually know what he actually stood for too. Characters like Rocco, who is my favorite, and I hope to see more of him in the future movies as well. But yeah, really great movie.
So you're going out on a limb and saying that Rocco didn't die, he's going to come back as like some sort of twist, I would imagine.
Exactly, yeah. So if you haven't seen the movie, I feel like most people have seen it if you're watching this review. But yeah, he just surprisingly just disappears halfway. And I was like, no, he better come back at the end. And I was so upset that he never came back towards the end of the movie. But I was like, all right, he can easily come back. I know apes technically aren't the best swimmers. They're not intended to be in water that deep in rivers and stuff. But, it's a different society of apes too. So evolution has come a long way, as they mentioned within the movie too. So I'm calling it. I think he's coming back.
I do feel like orangutans are a little bit lankier than most apes. I know all apes are lanky, but I do feel like orangutans have like a really big wingspan. I'm just saying maybe he was like easier to grab a rock than a chimp,
Yeah.
That's one nitpick I actually have is more orangutans, please.
Yeah. And also, gorillas, like they're always either the villain or they sacrifice themselves for Caesar. And again, gorillas are mainly the villains within this movie. But speaking of the villains too, like it's interesting because the villains are not what you expect. I really wanted to applaud the marketing for this movie, just because I overall just assumed that apes were going to be hunting the last of the humans that are smarter than others. And while that is kind of like an aspect within the movie, it's not at all what the main theme of the movie is. It's surprisingly, it's just about apes just wanting to make sure that they're the dominant species in terms of just like education. And I was really caught off guard by just them just trying to get into a military base and just seek tools and technology that they're unaware of that exists, that's at their disposal, but they just don't know how to use it, and they're looking for the tools to figure out how to use it to help their society. So really interesting. Just like it's like simple, keeping it simple, but it feels very grand.
Yeah, definitely. And I did think that little moments like that brought in those questions of like, okay, once they finally get into the nuclear, or what is it? Just like, it's like a bunker essentially. And this is hot off the heels of the success of Fallout. So it was kind of cool. It was like, oh, another thing that's, dealing with bunkers, they're throwing it in there. Not saying like, they obviously ripped it off or anything. The concept of bunkers has been around for a while. And we find out that there are other humans in, bunkers, whether it's, I think we find out specifically, was it Indiana they mentioned, right?
I was actually the whole movie, I was wondering where this took place and stuff too. I was like, is this LA or is this New York, or it's definitely not San Francisco anymore. But if you heard that, then okay, that caught me off guard.
I think it was just the radio at the end, like somebody says like Indiana something. Like I don't think they were in Indiana, obviously, because they're on the coast, but I think the bunker that they're communicating with was Indiana. At least that's what I kind of heard at the end, but maybe I misheard it. But anyways, I guess it could be even on another side of the world, but it was a satellite phone that they were using. But yeah, I liked some of the little questions that he even brought up when they get into that base. It's like, okay, who does this belong to? Does this technology belong to humans because it was humans in the past, or does it belong to the apes? I heard Wes Ball talk about how this film is following apes entering the Bronze Age versus the last trilogy was them entering the Stone Age. Like apes finally are emerging into this new society and taking over, while the humans are essentially becoming apes. In this film, we're kind of seeing that maybe reverse essentially from the last series of films, which should be interesting. I kind of still want to see more apes, I'm not gonna lie. Like you mentioned, like give me some more orangutans, throw in some gorillas that aren't specifically villains or sacrificing themselves, but they don't always have to be martyrs that are dying for the cause. But yeah, just switch it up.
Yeah, and interesting human characters as well too. Like, of course, May is the one human that we mainly see, but I was pleasantly surprised to see William H. Macy in this movie. He played an interesting character, despite it being a small part. But May, I'm sure is going to come back, and I was very surprised by how she was portrayed, and kind of in the third act when her overall true intentions start to come out, and that final sequence with her with Noah also really caught me off guard too, because it's going to be interesting to see. And, I don't like her. You're not really intended to necessarily like her. She's not really like a bad person. She's just doing what she believes is best for her and, humankind. But, when it's a movie about animals, I'm rooting for the animals. I think that's everyone watching this movie. Everyone wanted Caesar to kill Woody Harrelson in War of the Planet of the Apes. And so, I think all of us are rooting for the apes to win despite us being humans. But let me know in the comments below if you're like, no, F these apes, I want the humans to win. That's surprising, but you're a little weird, I feel like. But yeah,
there's definitely some people out there that probably side somehow. And we'll probably see that in the future movies, because obviously I think once the human civilization, builds up and is able to get out. Because we see that the somehow, May is probably, immune to the simian flu. We see like that the humans that are in the bunker, they can't really leave. They spray down and use like hazmat suits and stuff. So, maybe for some reason she's able to leave, but she can't go back in, obviously, because she'll be bringing in some, viruses or something like that, some of the simian flu. But yeah, I think that the tension in that final scene definitely shows us where this franchise is going to be going. But I like that. For me, the Planet of the Apes, series of films has always been about like, more science fiction aspects. I know that the term science fiction nowadays kind of just means like Star Wars. I don't think Star Wars is really science fiction. If you think about it, there's no actual science. It's more just straight up space battles. I don't think that space battles, there's nothing really, inherently, makes you think about that. It's not, really interesting beyond stuff that could exist, outside of space. I think science fiction is something for me like, Ex Machina or, Annihilation. Maybe I just named movies from, sorry, what was the director's name?
Garland, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I just name Alex Garland movies, but he's definitely one of the guys who makes more headier movies. But yeah, at least when it comes to a blockbuster movie, that's I'm not saying this film's super heady, but I could see that hopefully this, takes the original trilogy, spins it on its head. My favorite is, of course, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, just because it took that first movie, twisted on its head with apes, using a time machine and landing on Earth. And that's something we haven't seen yet in these new Apes movies, as time machines, but we know they do exist. So that will be interesting. I think one thing to mention too is, you said we don't really like CGI that much, but recently we saw Godzilla -1 win the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. And I do think that there's been an awful lot of glazing online about how good those special effects are. I know they won the Oscar. I did think that the special effects were really good for a $15 million budget, but I think there are a lot of scenes in that movie where the special effects actually don't really hold up. It's pretty much anytime Godzilla is like full shot body, but some of the ocean scenes are absolutely excellent. But this was a film where the visual effects really blew me away. It felt like, I recently just watched all the last trilogy of Apes movies, and I thought the special effects still hold up really well. But this was one where I was like, oh man, like these special effects have made such a leaps and bounds over the last version, which I still think held up. But I think has it been 7 years? I think I've heard, right? Since the last films.
Yeah, it's been 7 years since War.
Yeah, and it feels like they made drastic leaps and bounds. This is some of the best special effects I've seen in a while. There are other films recently where there's some great special effects moments throughout, and then maybe some that aren't that good throughout the movie. But this was one where like the entire movie, I'm like, dude, all the special effects look absolutely amazing in this film.
Yeah, we've come a long way, whether it's Apes in the 1933 King Kong, where it's the 70s Planet of the Apes with, the awesome practical effects. Same thing with the Tim Burton one, too, whether or not you like or dislike that movie. The special effects done by Rick Baker in that movie are absolutely fantastic. Still, a lot of the movies, rewatched the trilogy also. Rise, I was so impressed with when it came out. And then War, when I rewatched that earlier today, I was just like, oh my gosh, these are just real apes at this point. I'm excited to see how this franchise just keeps going with just the better and better CGI, because this movie's going to hold up easily for decade, 2 decades and stuff. So it's absolutely breathtaking stuff. So, let us know in the comments below what you're thinking about this movie and franchise, because that's a great way to help support the show, and we can talk about apes any day.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And speaking of updates, be sure to catch all our social media links down below for Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and our own personal letterbox accounts. That'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for more episodes and videos of us monkeying around.